Everyone. So in this video today, I'm going to talk about how to take a study that I've done and apply it to a illustration. It's more like a illustration sketch, I would say, mainly because the way I approached this image in particular was kind of free form. I didn't really plan out in like a traditional method of like the balance of the characters or the poses and things like that. I kind of found it through the process, which is something that I tend to do with these type of sketches. I like to experiment and try to find it organically rather than planning out things ahead of time. And I know that's maybe a little different than people learn how to do things traditionally, but I find that for me it works. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about how to get to this, how I got to this final, and how the study influenced me. And also some of the techniques that I used in the video as it relates to like photo bashing techniques and things like that. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. So to begin out this process, I actually took in a couple of images and put them into a plate of these cowboys, and I just wanted to experiment with like a basic composition that I've done before, and then taking the study and seeing if I can like retrofit it into this composition to get something interesting, right? I want to do a character study, or like a character moment, right? That was reminiscent of the study, right? So the study is a character piece. So I wanted to do something similar. So that's why I also removed all the unnecessary characters, and maybe it was just about like this one guy going through the forest. And I'll go ahead and pause right here because I did make a change, and I got quite a like I got far along in that previous video in terms of like I established a value in an environment, and the guy on the horse with the lighting the lighting up his cigarette or whatever, right? But I decided to move in a different direction, and the reason I did that is because I felt that the composition in the previous one, while it is good and it worked, I felt that it wasn't compelling enough of an image, and it wasn't representative of like the particular moment that I was trying to capture. With these Western paintings, a lot of times I'm trying to capture like a feeling, right? And this particular feeling for this image, just I wanted something more exciting, more tense. Whereas the last one was more calm. It was like more serene. It was like a silent moment. And you could argue that in this study that I did to the left, it's also a silent moment, right? It's a guy, he's just sitting on his porch. But I wanted to take what I learned about I guess lighting and value and focal points and apply it to a more action centric scene. So that's why I ended up changing things up here. And you'll also notice that I started off with again like a 3-person composition, but the characters here, right, are a lot more tense. The moment is a feeling of danger, right? Almost like as if they're in a cave they're about to like discover something. And another thing to note here too as well is that the way that I'm working is I'm just like copy pasting photos around. I tend to do this because for me, if I'm working with photography and I'm working in this free flow form, I'm going to cut and paste things and paste them in to see if they fit. And a lot of times they won't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut them out. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to move on. But sometimes they do make it into the final, and if they do make it into the final, it's an important thing to note that I do get the appropriate licensing for these images in the final. So anything that makes it into the final here, even if there's like a watermark on it, for example, I do go back and purchase it. A lot of times I just don't go and make the effort to like put the high res in because I've already gone through and like done a bunch of rework on the original. So that's something to keep in mind, right? Is that like licensing is important. And it's important that if you do use something in a piece that you should get the appropriate licensing for it. So let's go ahead and continue on here. So here I'm just trying to establish like a general feeling and lighting, again, like a mood as well, trying to push fog so I can get value reads a lot stronger. Again, trying to get like that cinematic moment with the like fire, and trying to replicate like a semblance of the lighting that's going on in the study. And once again here, like I'm changing up the different characters, like almost as if it's actors, right? Like I'm changing the actors in the scene like a director would. Like I'm doing like casting essentially. And you'll see here, right? Like I still have the 3 characters, but at some point here, I decide that 3 might not work, right? It might be too crowded, and this is where I change it to the 2 characters. I felt that this dynamic worked better. I also like the pose between the 2 characters. If you look at the way that the gun on the left, or the rifle on the left, and the guy holding the gun on the right, like their dynamic, I felt was very strong, and the poses felt natural. That's another thing too, right? Like with this particular process, because I'm not working with like a drawing, the poses that I'm using here are very important because I don't want it to feel unnatural. I want them to feel as dynamic and as natural as possible. And that's like a huge part of my decision making with the photos that I'm using. So on the left here, I pulled in some reference photos from Jamie Jones. I really like his approach to brushwork and color exaggeration in that particular image, or set of images on the left. So I'm trying to push my image in that direction, right, where I'm exaggerating lighting from the ground, right, with the lighting coming up above and hitting him from below. Same thing with the character's face, right? Like that's a very exaggerated light source coming from the below left. But for me, I felt that pushing that created like an interesting lighting scenario that you may not necessarily see in real life, but in a cinematic sense, that could be something that you could definitely see in like a movie. So that's the essence of what I'm trying to achieve here, right? Is like something that's exaggerated, dramatic, and tells the moment of the story well, while also staying true to kind of what I was learning in the study. And here I'm painting over the character in the foreground. I'm doing quite a bit of rework just to, again, align it with my art reference that I have to the left. Because I feel like it's important to have a target for your image, right? Like not only reference for the lighting that you want and the color and stuff, but also a target for the type of art style that you're trying to achieve, right? Like there's a lot to learn from the image to the left in terms of like how he approaches brushstrokes and like brush efficiency, all that stuff. So keeping that open on your screen somewhere will help you to kind of stay in line with that idea, and that you won't get kind of lost and start to move in a different direction. And for example, in the hand on the main character here, like that, keeping the Jamie Jones painting up helped me simplify the brushstrokes in the hand and the value reads there. So that was very helpful, right? And now I'm just adding in things like effects, the flames, like the sparks and things like that, the sky in the back, kind of getting an indication of some environment back there, but nothing too concrete. Yeah, and playing with edges and things like that. If you want to learn more about photo bash related techniques and things like this, I'll have a video coming out about particular workflows that I used in this image and in the image that's going to be coming out. That'll kind of go over that, because there's a lot of I guess trade knowledge that I can share in terms of like the specifics, right? This is more of a time lapse that's going over the general process, but if you want to learn like how to manipulate an image in a way that is going to allow you to like take a photo and place it into a scene and then curves correct it to be the right value and color balance it to be the right color temperature, and then maybe match color to like get it closer to the general scene. And like, there's a lot of different tricks to photo bashing, but I think in the end, right, like there's tons of different ways to do things. And unfortunately for this video, I'm not going over that. I'm just kind of going over the general right, like workflow for this type of sketch process. So I hope that this was useful in some sort of sense. Again, like I'm going to be doing more in-depth videos coming out very soon on photo bash related techniques, and that's going to go more into specifics rather than just kind of general sped up timeline process. But yeah, this is how I approach doing a study to a concept. And then from here, right, like you could always go in and like refine certain elements or leave it as is. But either way, I think in total time, this image maybe took about 6 hours in total, give or take with breaks and things like that. So I would still say that it's probably like within the sketch realm. So some key takeaways here is to keep up an art reference on the side somewhere so that you have like a goal for your artistic like level of detail and things like that you're trying to achieve. Have a color reference if you can, or like value or something like that as well. And in this particular case, I think playing with the poses a lot and not just going with the first like photo that you see is important, because a lot of times, especially with character-based illustration, making sure that the character dynamics feel natural is going to be what makes your image feel evocative, right? So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in my next video where I'm going to be going over more in-depth photo bashing techniques.